All right, folks, it's time for another dramatic blog reading because I literally can't even, and I just got in from a walk after writing this article, so I'm ready to read it to you. I'm spending March with my hair down because I pledged informally in writing that I would wear my hair down for a month when Iran is free, and it's free enough for me to start because the Ayatollah is dead. And, however you might feel about death, in the case of one, I hope you understand what the death toll was at his hands. It was at least 50,000 protesters slaughtered in the streets of Iran, and that's something that even Anna Kasparian doesn't seem to understand, which is a bit awkward considering she comes from a genocided people, the Armenians. I can see visibly that she's experiencing a lot of cognitive dissonance right now, going through this experience of becoming if not a genocide denier, then a slaughter denier, mass killing denier. Extermination is what someone told me was one of the many podcasters and students and researchers I've been listening to over the past several months and several years about the Middle East. So I'm sorry to say that the NDP, a party that I have tried to save from its own self-destruction many times, has just come out and sided 3 days after his death, I might add, with the Ayatollah. What could that possibly mean? No, I shit you not. Just listen to this. Let me put it on screen. The NDP just sided with the Ayatollah. It's truly disgraceful. This is what I said when I first saw it on the Goldie Gamari Discord, where you can join the discussion morning, noon, and night. Oh, Jesus, for fuck's sake. Because, the liberals didn't do this. Mark Carney didn't do this. And it's so bizarre to hear myself saying that I'm defending Mark Carney. I've never done this. I have never defended the liberals over the NDP, ever, in my entire life. I held my nose and voted liberal for Chrystia Freeland because they promised voting reform, which would help with the multi-party system problem. We need to preserve our multi-party system. But here I am. I don't know what's happening. I'm defending the liberals. I spent entire season of my life going door to door saying, just don't vote liberal. I'm not saying to vote for them, but on this position, the NDP picked the worst possible time to not back the liberals. They backed the liberals on every stupid decision that the liberals made because they had to. And then suddenly they decided, well, we're going to break with the liberals exactly when it will place us on the wrong side of history. This is what they've done. So let's take a look. Here's the statement. Oh my God. Statement by NDP Foreign Affairs critic Alexandre Boulay-Rees on the Iran bombings. Notice no mention of what these bombings are about, like slaughter of 50,000 people. The NDP strongly condemns the American and Israeli response to stand with victims. Sorry, I mean the Israeli bombings of Iran. They condemn standing with victims. This is a dangerous escalation that risks dragging the entire region into a major conflict. Are you fucking kidding me? The entire region is in a major conflict. It started on October 7th, which was done by the proxy state actor acting on behalf of the Iranian regime that you're now opposing bombing. They're the source of the major conflict. The oppressive and bloody regime of the Ayatollahs is reprehensible, but... Do you hear that? Do you hear that? We all know what that means in this woke age, right? The oppressive and bloody regime of the Ayatollahs is reprehensible, but... I hope you're face-palming for me right now. But its nuclear program must be managed through the United Nations and the International Atomic Energy Agency. Well, no, that's not true. If that were the only possible way, you wouldn't need to write this letter. And if that were the only moral way, that would be in a universe where we were dealing with a different regime. They go on. In fact, its Director General, Mr. Grossi, recently indicated that he was working with the Iranian administration to resume inspections violations. Inspect your ass. And reiterated that there could be no solution other than a diplomatic one. Well, what do you call Stuxnet? Was that a diplomatic solution? For those of you who don't know, to stop the Iranian nuclear program years ago, they had to infect the whole world with the Stuxnet virus just to get it into the Iranian turbines, the Iranian nuclear facilities, to spin their turbines backwards and mess with the nuclear program. And so when people say, oh, well, they're always saying that they're close to a nuclear program, it's like, yeah, and the reason it doesn't happen is because we keep fucking stopping them. And now the NDP has decided to play the blame game just because, what, they're used to being in opposition, so they have to take a contrary position. Like, what is this? This is as bad as Jagmeet Singh, my former boss, who until that point seemed like he was right when he spoke most of the time. I'm not going to say what I thought about the rest of the party, but when he spoke, it seemed right. And then he called for a ceasefire on October 8th. And what can I say? I eventually called for a ceasefire, but not until the end of February. You don't. An immediate ceasefire call is victim blaming and unfeminist, to say the least. What does it say here? The NDP deplores the Carney government's decision to blindly support this dangerous adventure by Israel and Donald Trump's administration. They're not supporting it blindly. You're deploring a fiction. Where's your evidence that it's blind? Why the hell would they support it blindly? You think they didn't do any research? Ridiculous propaganda. And the reason is the reason they deplore it, I guess, is because it's attached to the Donald Trump administration. Which is funny because Rebel News just suggested that Carney is trying to put together a global anti-U.S. coalition. So if the NDP wants to resist Donald Trump, they're fucking it up. We want Canada to be a voice for diplomacy, peace, and international law, which is what the regime was fucking breaking. Is it in accordance with international law to genocide your protesters? No, it wasn't in Tiananmen Square, and it wasn't in Persia, okay? So anyway, that's what I'm saying off the cuff now. I managed to be calm enough to write an article about it, so now here's what I said. Just imagine siding with Hitler. Not during the Nazi regime, when Hitler could come and kill you, but 3 days after his death, as the Reich fell. Sadly, that's where we're at today with the shameful, cowardly federal NDP, my former employer. Many times I've been ashamed to be a leftist, although it never shook my voting habits or my policy positions, which you can read about on Breaking, Liberals Now as Authoritarian as the Conservatives Were. I was ashamed when the BC party sided against Native protesters in Wet'suwet'en protests despite inevitable outcomes. There was a big land back ruling. Look that up in the hyperlinks. I was ashamed when women cried into the phone, what happened to my body, my choice? And no, they weren't talking about abortion. Look that one up too. I was ashamed when the party supported big business child abuse. What do I mean? I mean ABA. I mean conversion therapy for autism. The kind of conversion therapy that's already illegal for homosexuality, but supported by the NDP for autism. I really need you to look that one up because, as you will see in the linked article, the NDP still supports child abuse. I've contacted them incessantly to get them to clarify a new position on ABA in which they don't support child abuse. And let's see, maybe one in which they support women's rights. I was ashamed when the party abused my comrades who spoke out about this injustice. And yes, I use the word comrade a little ironically. I did always tell people on the left that I wasn't a communist, I was just a socialist. Jesus Christ. Because guess what, guys? Radical feminism entails personal property. Have you ever thought of that? Anyway, I was ashamed when they backed the Liberals throughout the onset of the Nazi Freeland news ban and the trucker human rights violations. Hopefully you all know about the trucker human rights violations. They have one appeal left, and they lost the last two. So they're lawbreakers. They broke Trudeau's Daddy's Act. They broke Trudeau's Daddy's Charter in the sequel to his Daddy's Act in his weird theatrics. And some of you might not know about the Nazi Freeland news ban. It's just like her ancestors did when they conscripted a Jewish newspaper and turned it Nazi. They have similarly tightened the reins on the media here in Canada with a little judo move where they get to blame Mark Zuckerberg for it. How convenient for a Nazi gets to blame a Jew. But actually, it's what they wanted, because it started when another Jew started a class action lawsuit against the government for no cost-benefit analysis in COVID, that was Ezra Levant. And no, I don't vote the same as him, but I can understand an argument. Even if a wall is talking to me, I don't have to know how the wall votes. It can be an inanimate object. It's just math. If you read arithmetic, either the argument makes sense or it doesn't. It doesn't matter whether it came from the left or the right. I was ashamed when we got dental care out of the Liberal deal instead of voting reform. Now that was a massive bait and switch because Trudeau promised that. And that would have actually helped us maintain a multi-party system, not this collapse. And this is not the way to break with the Liberals, guys. To support the Ayatollah 3 days after his death, you need to break with the Liberals on human rights, on standing up for the little guy, on feminism. And people thought Trudeau was a feminist. What a fucking joke. And I was ashamed when they accused me of transphobia for making simple observations about the media and siding with Deborah Soh and their own hand-picked panelist. I won't even get into that one here today, but read that too, guys. But now I am really ashamed. Ironically, now that the party has broken ranks with the Liberals and supported the Ayatollah who murdered 50,000 to 100,000 protesters in a mass extermination with a death rate 100 times Gaza's, in what is tantamount to indigenous genocide denial, something that's supposed to get you arrested here in Canada. So I had to tweet at Heather McPherson, who I've supported over Abby Lewis, who wrote this horseshit. I hope she had nothing to do with it. I would love to hear that, because I need to know who's behind this. This is an absolute fucking travesty, people. This is what you write when women are being liberated in Iran, that you're against it, that you're fucking against it. You might as well be a bunch of rapists as far as I'm concerned at this point. And I asked Jagmeet Singh, why is the party siding with the Ayatollah? What happened to women's rights? Who is behind this? You know, I slaved away working for this man. He owes me an answer. Once again, what happened to motherfucking feminism, you motherfucking fake leftists? Listen to Goldie Gamari and learn a thing or two about women's rights. I was also shocked today to see Anna Kasparian engage in the same cognitive dissonance-driven denial of the volume of the slaughter today in her fated first showdown with the legendary Goldie, which is also a must-watch, like the previous one, especially for the federal quote-unquote NDP, who clearly has no understanding of the conflict, which I've seen her cover all day for 64 days. It's almost as if Anna, in her rising anti-Semitism, hasn't even listened to the most powerful interview of the Iranian Revolution, which you should really listen to, because honestly, it was women's rights that helped Anna see clearly about Hamas. But she's failing to do it now, and it's because she's under the spell of Chunky. Chunky yogurt is what we call chunky yogurt now, okay, guys? It's for reasons like these that only true feminists who stood for women's rights against the Ayatollah should ever helm a leftist party again. And see that link there for my radical proposal that the only way we can beat Doug Ford is if somehow they could convince Goldie Gamari to run against him, and they would have to change several of their policies, wouldn't they? And definitely, so only true feminists who stood for women's rights against the Ayatollah should ever helm a leftist party again, and definitely no one who wouldn't legalize polyandry. Speaking of women's rights, the left no longer gets a free pass just for being pro-gay marriage, which is what made me just completely discount any kind of right-wing party for years. But I'm pretty sure Melissa Lantsman is not against gay marriage. So the fight for marriage equality and human rights, such as freedom of association, truckers, is far from over. And of course, freedom of association is also, entails legalization of polyandry. So this is the new test, people. Okay? This should be really simple, okay? If you don't understand this, please get your head checked, because this is the test, okay? You aren't a real leftist or a feminist if, 1, you didn't oppose the Islamic regime in Iran, and 2, you won't legalize polyandry. Learn up, leftists, or you will fail the test like the right failed the gay marriage test for decades. Peace.